All right. And we'll book.
That's interesting. It kind of continues to move up on the amount of people.
Yeah. Welcome, everybody. We're just getting our Facebook Live. We'll get started just as soon as we're that are with us already. All right, and I'm live on Facebook. Just that between the webinar and the Facebook page, welcome everybody to our webinar, Beyond Screen Time, Connecting with Youth through Social Media. We'll just give another minute or two for people to arrive. We have 29 participants already. You can connect with us in the chat box. Those are going to be found on your screen. On the Zoom window, there's a button, and you can use each of those to connect with. We're up to 30. Great. Click back over. I think we're looking at the slide deck on that next tab over. All right. All right. Okay. So Eric, I think we're viewing your screen. If you want to take us over to the slide deck.
Yes.
Great.
Whoops.
I think we might be seeing your Facebook page, your Facebook tab.
Really?
Yeah, so
Oh.
I'm seeing
on Screentime.
I'm seeing the Google Slides. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah. Beyond Screentime. Yeah.
So are we seeing it right? I've turned off everything else.
That's what I'm seeing, Beyond Screentime, Connecting with Youth. That's the slide that I see right now.
All right. Well, why don't we get started? I think it's something on my end, of course. Good. Well, I want to welcome everybody to this webinar, Wisdom from the Field, from Virginia Theological Seminary's Keith Anderson. I'm the Associate for Digital Content for Lifelong Learning, and this is one of our monthly webinars on Wisdom from the Field. And it's kind of brought to you by a combination of eFormation and Building Faith. eFormation connecting or equipping leaders to use digital tools today, about how we leverage digital technology and social media and other digital technologies to connect with youth and to disciple them in their faith. And we have a couple great presenters with us this morning, Easton Davis and Eric Travis. So I'm having a hard time seeing which slide we're on, and I'm not sure exactly why, because I think my screen is getting in the way. But
right now we're on the eFormation Building Faith screen.
Okay, and if we want to go to the next one, why don't we open with a word of scripture from Romans 10.
We're on that now.
All right. But how are they not believed? And how are they to believe in one whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone to proclaim him? And how are they to proclaim him unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful good news. And our presenters today are two people that bring good news in many ways. In the word, Easton Davis, who is the missioner for youth and young adult ministries at the Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta, and Eric Travis, who's the missioner for youth and young adults in the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan, each doing remarkable work in their own settings and dioceses, but also contributing to the larger work of the church in various sundry ways, but particularly we're talking about today in digital ways. So I want to thank you both for being with us today.
You're very welcome.
Pleasure.
So let's talk about the format of our digital gathering today. We're going to talk. We like to move from kind of bigger picture to. We're going to do kind of more of a blend of that today. We're going to talk about getting the most out of different social media platforms when it comes to working with youth, and each component of that. Safe church practices look like in regards to those usages. And then we're going to pause for some Q&A, and then we're going to talk about, which is really cool, social media as a discipleship tool, which is going to be really interesting, and then do some Q&A. There's a Q&A button window and a chat. Either of those two, I'll keep track of those as we go, as and then I'll present those questions to them as we reach our moments to pause. Again, the recording and more information, all the resources we talk about today are going to be available. Watching on the webinar, then you're automatically going to get an email with the recording and information, the resources that are available that we talk about here, and we'll also make those available. Faith, buildfaith.org. We'll have the recording, we'll have the slides, and a list of resources for you to access later on as well. So don't feel like you have to capture everything all at once. Okay. So with that, why don't we get started, and Eric to talk about today's topics.
All right. Hey everyone. So I'm Easton, and very quickly, just go over a little bit of the basics. We'll be going over branding today, just to look into why that's important for your youth ministry program, and whatever program you manage. We'll take a look at different social media outlets, some group messaging platforms, and at the end, we'll close with social media as a discipleship tool. And Eric?
In between, sort of at the end of the social media and the group messaging platforms, I'm going to give you some suggestions and some ideas on some safe practices and best practices to comply with some safe church policies and ways to use social media the best way you can to make sure that everyone is as safe as they can be.
Next slide, please. All right, branding. So why is it important? And I wanted to start with this because branding is, to me, something that if you're not doing it the right way, you can audience. It's something that you want to try to put a face to a name. I call it your online identity, because all of these outlets we're talking about, everything we're doing, is tied to something that people are accessing from their phones. And so it's a face to a name. When I say it's legit, I think that it legitimizes like who you are. We're in an age now where our young people are so exposed to professional looking platforms, like whatever they're interacting on, that, if your branding isn't strong, then in a lot of ways, they might not take it like as seriously as like an online presence. So what to keep in mind with, and when I'm talking about branding, probably there's going to be different elements of that. But today specifically, I really want to talk about the face, so your logo, like what people are seeing, every time they go to look at your different social media outlets. So something it's noticeable. It's important that it's the same across all platforms. So whatever you have different formats. I talk about multiple formats, but it's really important that whatever that format is for your Instagram, your Twitter, your Facebook, that's a very similar format. You might have, and you'll see some of it later on, but you might have a banner format that would go across, a Facebook cover photo, or it might go across a website as like a website banner, or you might need it for something printed, something that you would digitally. So you do need to have different formats. That's important. I think the last part is when it comes to young people, it's something that's youth ministry. It kind of speaks their language a little bit. It's fun. It has some positive energy around it. It's colorful. Whatever you want it to be. I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. That's really it for branding. I want to keep that pretty short and simple. Eric, did you have something for branding as well?
No, not really. Just making sure that it's appropriate.
All right, there we go. So this is our Dawson Youth Ministry logo branding in the Diocese of Atlanta. This is actually a brand new logo. We rolled this out officially 3 weeks ago, and I'm not going to show you our old logo. It was fine, but this is what we got now, and I'm trying to make our old logo disappear in all places just because this is our face now. You'll notice it has a cross for the ATL part. We put a cross in there. I'm showing you the formats that we use. This banner format at the very top is something that goes across our website. To your left, you'll see kind of like our button logo that we use for like the social media circles that you'll see on Instagram and Facebook. And that's another thing you have to look at is formatting. There's different formats you have to use for each one. This one in the middle is something that we'll use for maybe a video, just because it stretches across a little bit more. And then this black and white you'll see on the right-hand side, that's basically for printing purposes, for like t-shirts and things like that. So sometimes you're gonna not use color, and so that's just to show you an idea of what something might look like. It would probably not even print in black and white. It might just be all white, but like the idea is that there will be times where you need something that's not in full color. So that just gives you an idea of different formats for logos. All right, so social media, and I need to minimize this for a second. Just some important facts around social media. 11 people start using social media every second. The average person spends 2 hours a day on social media. That's the average person. I think there's young people spending a lot more time on social media than 2 hours a day. This is a really neat quote from a book that I've read called Jab, Jab, Right Hook, I believe is the name. It took 38 years before 50 million people gained access to radios. It took television 13 years to earn an audience that size. It took Instagram a year and a half. The reason why I think that these are important numbers to look at and important things to talk about in regards to social media is it shows how quickly the culture has changed. Like connection is instantaneous. And so we have to keep that in mind, that and knowing that social media is not going anywhere. This is something that's here to stay. It's going to continue to grow, and it's up to us as ministers to use it as a tool, like to connect with students, parents, the entire church. This is something that is really important as an evangelism tool and as a marketing tool. And if we know that, then it just gives us that more opportunity to use it in such a way.
I would like to add that we can't be afraid of social media. It's not going anywhere. It's going to stay. And so don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of the dangers. You can do things and think about them ahead of time to make yourself and your young people and your organization safe.
Yes, sir. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about statistics for our social media platforms, which our name is EYCDIOATL, stands for Episcopal Youth Community, Diocese of Atlanta. Something that our youth know, and they chant it like towards me at events. It really makes me laugh, but I think they take it so seriously. That's the only time we're going to hear me talk about that acronym. These are our daily statistics for, you'll see daily reach over in the left-hand darker column of each one, and you'll see the average age of user located on the right-hand column. You'll notice that we don't have one of those for Snapchat. That's because Snapchat, you have to be, I can't remember the exact wording, but only really like big people or organizations like are given like statistical access to like their follow or their reach on Snapchat. We're not cracking that anytime soon. But anyways, the other platforms you can, if you have a page, an account, a business account, a page for Facebook, then you can look into your insights and see, what your average user and daily reach is. All right. Instagram, why it's important. I believe that this is the primary social media outlet used for middle school, the young adults in college, through young adults in college. So middle schoolers, high schoolers, young adults in college, as well as, plenty of adults are on Instagram. And I would recommend that if you're setting up an Instagram account, that you set it up as a business account, because there's just a few more perks that you get with a business account, like the way people are able to contact you, the insights, which is important if you want to look at your statistical data and see, where your reach is, you're able to access that. And so what I recommend for, having an Instagram account is if you're not updating daily, you're updating regularly. And the only time I'm really going to talk about that when it comes to social media is if you're setting up accounts and you decide to just let it sit, then people lose interest. It goes back to that being a legitimate kind of organization and your online presence being important. They notice it. There's also data that backs up the less you post, or if you become really inactive, then it kind of falls out of people's feeds a little bit, and they're less likely to see things when you do post it. So daily, or at least 3 to 4 times a week, trying to update. Big thing to do for Instagram is upcoming events. And when you do an upcoming event or an event reminder, you can include a registration link in your bio link. And so if you've got an Instagram account, that's the one link that you get. It's not like Facebook where you can post hyperlinks and people can click on them. You have to use that bio link in order for it to work. But it's a great way to get people or youth to register. Instagram can be a place of inspiration, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that as a discipleship tool. I don't want to talk about that too much right now. Building community, right? Building online community. It's real, and we'll talk a little bit about that more in the discipleship tool. I hit on the registration links. You can definitely do registration links. Instagram takeovers on our Dawson youth account. We have some standards for how that works. But we allow some of our youth groups to do some Instagram takeovers. Really neat feature. There's a story function, and you can update your story, which is short videos. You can also go live. I didn't include that in there, but you can also go live. But of those, like the story function is a great way. You can do polls in there. You can ask questions in there. There's all sorts of stuff you can do in your story function that's really neat. 60-second videos, they're lower res than Facebook. I think that's important to know. Repost is an app that you can use. I think that's on another slide too. But Repost is another app that you can use that links to Instagram. And when so if you see something inspirational from another account, then you can then take that picture from Repost. You can copy that URL link from your Instagram account, and it will populate in your Repost app. So I think that's a neat tool to use. And then highlights is kind of like your story function, only highlights stay on your bio screen. And so we have a couple of those, and I'll show those on the next slide. So I'm done here, Eric. Okay, this is a look at some of our social media postings for Instagram. We'll start on this left-hand side. You can see our branding here at the top. Like, that's how all of them look. You'll see down here kind of our highlights, which are our stories. And so you've got other outlets, so you can follow us on other outlets. We do a Music Choice Monday, so those are all the previous Music Choice Mondays. And then we've got a recent events tab, which is any event that's happened like recently. And again, those come out of your story function. So if you're doing a story, they're archived, and then you can create these highlights at the bottom. And so that's just a broad look at our bio. We keep our calendar page as our default link because that's where all of our registrations are. I think hashtags are important too. We'll talk a little bit more about that. That's a hashtag that we use for a lot of our posts and all of our events. So the next picture is recently we had our annual council this past weekend. Those were the hashtags we were using for annual council. So you'll see the Love Like Jesus EDA, just kind of trying to share that love. And then I think it's interesting to point out how many people liked a photo that had so many, because it has all our faces in it. We can point back to that because there's something there in showing your face and in showing your young people that generates more people interested in what you're talking about, what you're showing, the story that you're telling. The next picture is a picture of the shirts that we did. Presiding Bishop was in town, and so the way of love, obviously, and our theme for council going into our purpose statement, to love like Jesus. So we kind of tied those together, real cute. This one had 57 likes. That's there, like, again, a picture that has people in it has 152. This one has 57. There's something there. And then the next one is on your far right is a picture from Happening 70 that we did in our diocese. It was in September. Again, with the hashtags, you'll see our main hashtag, and then we have a hashtag for Happening ATL. And that's an app also called Word Swag that you can use on your phone that puts words on pictures. And so Happening 70, we use, we'll talk about some apps that you can use that make your job a little bit easier for social media at the end. But again, that's Word Swag. That's one of the apps. So that's it for that screen. Okay, so Facebook. Why is Facebook important? Primary social media outlet for Gen X and older. Facebook is for my parents. It's for me too. I use Facebook, but I will say that I think for like being a millennial, I'm one of the older millennials, and Facebook was definitely big. Like, it was before Instagram, whereas now this current generation doesn't use it as nearly as much. I see a lot of times they start creating accounts when they're in college, things like that. So they have their class wants them to create it, or they decide to get on it because their parents are on it. They want to connect with relatives, things like that. But generally Facebook is for an older audience, but just because it's for an older audience, doesn't mean that it's not really, really important for your ministry with young people. Because you've got parents, you've got parishioners, you've got all sorts of people that you still need to connect with. And let them know what you're doing in your ministry. So how to use this page. A lot of it's very similar. You've got the daily updates. You've got the upcoming events. Facebook is more robust in what you can do with it. And so you'll have the calendar function, which I think is pretty crucial to having your events and even registration links for your events in that section. You've got event reminders, the inspiration, again, building community. Registration links, what's nice about the registration links is they do appear as hyperlinks in Facebook. And so you can just post a direct link. I wish Instagram would do that. It would make things so much easier, but they choose not to. There is a story function for Facebook that operates like almost identically to the way it operates on Instagram. What's really nice about Facebook and Instagram is they interact with each other very well. So most of what I post from Instagram, I directly share to Facebook by linking my account from Instagram to Facebook. When you do that, if you're posting, a lot of times when I'm on Instagram and I'm sharing a registration link, I'll say at the end of the post, link in bio, like the link is in the bio of our account. When you go to Facebook, then I have to go in and edit that and delete that part that says link in bio and write link below. And then I'll put that direct hyperlink right there embedded in the post. And so not something that's like super frustrating. It's really, if you do it enough, then it becomes second nature. Every now and then I forget, and it's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. Another thing about Facebook is I don't know what the video length is, but you can have long videos, super high res. They look great. And so that's just something to keep in mind is you can have your longer videos on Facebook. That's it for that, Eric. Okay, so just showing this is a picture. There's our old logo. I knew it was going to pop up somewhere. But so anyways, these two pictures, one of them, I think it's just an interesting way for people to look at their accounts. If you're looking from your phone, then you can, this is on your left-hand side is the way you'll see it, like if you're looking at your page. Again, you're going to have a lot more options even on your phone for what you can do with Facebook than what you can do on Instagram. But you'll see there's a view as icon on this left-hand picture. There you go, Eric. Yep. If you do view as, then on the right-hand side, this is what people see when they look at your Facebook. So I just think that that's an interesting way for you to kind of preview your page. I just wanted to show that quick comparison on that. All right, so this is what our page looks like if you're scrolling, if you were to scroll through it from top to bottom. So you'll see on the far left, you've got your story. And so you can have a longer description of what your purpose, what you are, your community. You've got your upcoming events underneath that. You'll have your reviews right underneath that. There's also, if you reply to messages quick enough, then you can have an icon that turns on how quickly you reply to messages. That is a hard icon to keep turned on, just telling you. But it's there if you work hard at it. So, and then I wanted to show this third picture, third from your third one on the right, just because this is one that we actually boosted. Both our bishops, Bishop Wright and presiding Bishop Michael Curry, are in this video. So I thought it would be a fun one for us to boost and spend a little bit of money on it. You'll see that it shows how many people have reached. You've got the light orange is your organic reach, and that darker orange is your paid reach. And so we clearly reached a lot more people organically than paid. Sometimes it's nice to pay for things. I don't do it too often, but every now and then, I do it just to try something new. I'm not exactly sure. I think I wanted to show, again, on this far right one, it would less people were reached. And honestly, my theory behind that is when it's just a picture of words, it's not as engaging. I don't think it populates on people's feeds. The algorithms are different for things like that. I'm sure there's some data out there to back that up, but this is just me I've done it enough to see that there's a big difference in like content when you're posting pictures of people versus posting pictures of words. So that's all I can really say about that. All right. So Instagram versus Facebook, I think this is a really important picture because what it really points to is how many more people are like engaging with an action on Instagram compared to the same post on Facebook. So on the left, you've got the Instagram post, 152 people liked this picture. On the right-hand side, 47 people liked that picture. There was one comment. There was like 4 comments on the Instagram photo. The reach was 242 people. Instagram doesn't give you that insight in the same way. It does it, and that's why I didn't share it, because it does it by like by your daily reach. And so that daily reach was like over 1,000 because it was annual council, and there was a ton of pictures being posted, so that it wasn't accurate to this. But the point is, I think that young people, because they're on Instagram and they're on it much more, and they're choosing to follow you, and people choose to follow you on Facebook too, but it just works differently on Instagram with the way young people like engage with your content. And so I just think that's kind of an important comparison to look at, and just how vital Instagram is for communicating with young people. Okay, Snapchat. Why is it important? There are youth that use Snapchat as their primary social media outlet over Instagram. And I'm sure I'm going to catch some flack on using Instagram from some people on this. And like, that's okay. Like I take it. I take the criticism for it, because some people they're like, Snapchat like freaks people out. What I will say is that Snapchat like does keep a record of snaps. And if you use Snapchat appropriately, and this is where, Eric, I'm going to just touch on the safeguarding a little bit with it. It can be used like appropriately in a way that you're not directly like communicating like one-on-one with youth. And so how do you use a Snapchat account? Daily updates through your story, the My Story function of Snapchat. That's really like the crux of like how you can use Snapchat as a tool for communicating and evangelism with young people. So in that story function, you can do event reminders. You can do registration links, URL links through swiping up on your Snapchat account. Inspiration remains the same. Direct message. You can direct message. You can use it as direct message. That's something that we don't do a lot, but if a youth asks us a question about an event, then we will respond to that question. And they used to not let you save those conversations. Now with Snapchat, you can't save a conversation, which is important. But if it were, we are very clear with our youth on how we use Snapchat, so we don't really get anything else other than direct messages about an event, which are not very frequent. And then we do not snap one-on-one with youth ever. We don't use the actual snapping with people at all, because it's not, and that gets into what it's not. It's not a primary outlet for event promotion. It's not a place for one-on-one communication outside of maybe a direct message about an event. It's not something that you use to snap. It's something that you use the story function for. It's really not a community builder tool in the sense of the way you can use Instagram and Facebook, because it's primarily like one-on-one communication with people. You can have group chat, so there's some things that you can do, but it's just not the same as using IG or Facebook in that way. So that's it for Snapchat. Twitter. Why is it important? I think that it's important because you can push out for young people to kind of keep up with public figures. You can keep up with daily, so you can do daily updates. You can retweet stuff from your bishop or from diocesan stuff, or from churches, stuff from the presiding bishop, stuff from the Episcopal Church. But I think retweeting people of influence that relate to your core message is probably the best thing you can do with Twitter. And it also links from IG. And so if you're posting, we use it primarily that way, we've got it linked to our Instagram account. So what we post on Instagram does populate onto Twitter with a photo they can look at, but it's just not something that we use. I don't think we use it that well. It's not something that I invest a whole lot of time in. It's something that's there. And I believe that Twitter is much better for people of prominence, like our presiding bishop or a bishop or, someone of that kind of nature over, big organizations, things like that. But that's Twitter. Okay. So Eric,
I'm going to go back to some of these. So as I said, social media is important. Our kids are out there. We need to be out there with them. And we can get a little afraid about what is going on, but we don't have to be. Some of the things that are going to be really important as you create these different social media accounts, and some of the best practices are: don't use a personal account. Have your organization or your the church create an account that is not just yours. So it's not your personal account. You may have a personal account and you can do what you want with that, but the one that you send out and use for the business, for the ministry, for the diocese, the church, whatever, create one that is specific for that, similar to what Easton has done here at Dio Atlanta. You see in all the different ones, he's created one that is for the diocese, that is of that ministry. Some of the other best practices as you create that is, don't be the only one to have the access code and the username and password. There should be a group of people. As you are deciding on doing social media, just like with just about all our ministries, don't do it alone. You will become inundated. You will be doing everything just social media if you try to do it alone. Don't do it alone. Have a group of people that are working on this and working together. And I would suggest, this is my idea, I think, if it's youth ministry, have youth involved and have them help with this. But have two adults, two young people, or a committee that is working with doing social media, that understands what your guidelines are, what you can and can't do, and how you interact, and you will go further in doing social media. In this policy, in the same policy, and again I'm going to use Easton and his examples, you'll notice that in his Instagram, he does not tag anyone in that picture. It is really important that when you post pictures of people especially, don't tag them. I mean, it's nice to be able to get a media release form, and I'm sure that Easton did for all the people, that young people that were involved in the ministry, because I do, and if you are doing any sort of youth ministry, you have these media release forms. But everyone in this picture probably didn't sign one, but that's okay, because it is a public event and you're not tagging anyone. A best practice is to not tag or create a clickable link from someone's face or someone's identity that leads to their page or their person. People are going to go here and, you see this is liked by 152 people, and I can see names and I can look that up, but that was self-disclosed. They did that themselves. We did not do that. That's one of the things about social media, is that it is interactive. What may happen is that someone will see, oh, my friend Gina was there, I want to see what this is about. And that's how the social media works, is connecting people. But it's nothing that you have done. It's nothing that you have created. The young people or the other adults have self-selected in to saying, I like this, I don't like this. The other sort of thing to look about as you're doing social media is, how do you get these friends, quote unquote friends, and friends mean different things in different areas, but most of it means is those that you have connections with. It is the best practice not to have adults friend minors and to invite them to friend your account. So again, it comes from the people that are out there self-selecting to connect to you and your account. And the reason we suggest this is that if you friend them or you ask them or all of that, is that there can be a differential in power, and they may not be able to say, well, I really don't want to, but you're an adult and I can't say no, so I guess I got to, and I don't really want to have that happening. So you just say, hey, come and friend me, or post your links and ask them to come and friend you. Ask them to ask their friends to come and connect with you. That's how you're going to join. And I absolutely agree with Easton on the idea that having faces on your social media will generate much more interaction than you will with just words. Don't identify the faces, don't say names. You can talk about what you're doing and where you're at and all that, but don't make specific identifications. The last thing I just want to talk about as you're progressing and doing these types of things is to realize that everything you put out there is public. So you need to realize that once it's out there, and there's nothing that you can do to stop that. So making sure that the pictures you post are appropriate, I'm sure that Easton, when he looked at the Happening 70 post, was also looking as he would, looking in the background to make sure that nothing inappropriate is there, because there have been times in which we focus so much on one part of the picture that there may be inappropriate things that are going on in the back. So take a look at what you're posting and look at all the pieces of it to see if there's maybe, those two little kids, whatever, in the background that are doing something they may not supposed to. Maybe we shouldn't do that one, or blur that one out. Just some things to think about as you're posting on these different methods. And then the other thing, as you are responding, because social media is designed to, it's not one person out or a group out. It really is designed to be interactive. Another reason why you should have a team of people that are answering these things, and also coming up with guidelines on who can be a part of that group. When should someone be asked to leave? What's inappropriate if they post something in a response? And I love having discussions on things like the Facebook, or not the Facebook, but on Facebook or other things. And our rules are that when it becomes inappropriate or mean or all of that, that we're going to remove you, that we have these guidelines. Come up with them before the event, before the problem happens. You will save yourself a lot of heartache as you go doing this. And I will say, and we will include this link, that we do have a link to the model policies for social media. And that you will have my contact information as well. That if you want to know how to go from the model to the practical, the actual, more than willing to help you. Diocese of Michigan has recently written its social media policy, the specifics about what it will and will not do. Not only am I willing to share that, but willing to help people as they walk through that. It's like, but Eric, I want to do it this way. Well, let's figure out how the best way to do that is. So I want to be able to offer those things. I'm going to then pass it back over to Easton as he talks about some of the group chatting and some of the group interactions. And I'll be back after he's done.
All right. So why is GroupMe important? It's a primary, I would call it the primary group texting tool for youth. And so you can set up different groups for committees. It could be for your youth group. Neat thing about having one for youth group is when I was in parish youth ministry, I had youth that helped me like eliminate part of my jobs. I mean, they were like communicating with like, finding rides for youth group and stuff like that. Instead of texting me, hey, Easton, I need a ride for youth group, they could like pop it on the group me, hey, can you and your mom come swing by and pick me up before youth group, things like that. So it's really unique in the way that it helped like youth kind of problem solve on their own at times. I will say that for a youth group, it did not work well for like middle school and high school to be together. We did not have one for middle school. We just decided to have one for high school. And we just decided it wasn't a great tool for middle schoolers in the same right. Probably times have changed for that in some sense, but at the same time, in youth ministry, a lot of your leadership groups are going to be in high school anyways. But you can do daily updates. We have a Dawson Youth Commission, and so for our upcoming event that they're responsible for planning, I mean, they're going to get the updates on Instagram. I'm also going to throw that registration link in the GroupMe and say, hey, because that can be a little bit more personal and say, what the heck, dude? Like, I need another 15 of y'all signed up for this. Like, y'all aren't pulling your weight. Whereas I can't really say that on Instagram, right? It wouldn't really make sense. But I can say that in GroupMe and say, like, come on, guys. Like, this is your job. Like, this is what you signed up for. So event reminders, great place to really build community. I've seen some really hilarious conversations, and they've taken memes of one another and created memes and things, and just to be goofy after an event. And it's a place where after an event we can share in that joy and that love of Jesus together. Guys, that was amazing. I'm so thankful and proud of y'all for sharing the love of Jesus in that way. And let's see. Yeah, and registration links, I already touched on that. But yeah, the daily updates, registration links. So we use it for, we have Happening, our high school retreat. We have New Beginnings, our middle school retreat. We have our Dawson Youth Commission. And then we have other things, like we do a leadership retreat. We have one for our youth delegates. That was a picture of me at council with my youth delegates. we had a GroupMe for communication during annual council. So there's a lot of ways that you can use GroupMe. But it's a pretty powerful tool. You can do a poll in GroupMe. You can do different things with it. You can upload pictures. You can upload documents. You can, have direct links to things. So yeah, it's a pretty powerful tool, and you can, if you need to, and we definitely do it for like adults that are all in the groups together. We definitely use the direct message function for adults pretty regularly. One thing I wish that GroupMe had was the ability to send a direct message to more than one person. Sometimes maybe you need to communicate with 3 members in a group, but you're not able to do that. Probably because they want you to create another group, right? Still, I'm going to push back on that and say, I don't want a group for 2 people. I just need to get a message out. So that's a little bit about GroupMe.
The 2 things I want to say about GroupMe for safe issues is that because you're interacting with groups, you're not doing one-on-one communication, so that there is a digital trail of your communications. It's open. It is cross-platform, which is also something that's really, kids live on their phones, and some live on Androids and some live on iPhones. What I like about GroupMe is it is not platform dependent. Also, you can download it for your computer. So I can have it on my computer during the day and will see the notifications and type in, because these fingers are still not used to that keyboard, and I can do both, either on the keyboard or on there. And it's safe, cross-platform, and is one of our best tools.
Cool. I didn't even know about that. That's pretty neat. Okay, so Remind. So this is more of a mass group text tool. It used to be Remind 101. It was started by, I can't remember what grade level, probably middle school or high school teachers. So it started in public schools and it made its way to the masses. And so you're able to use this, for your youth group would be a primary outlet. Let's see, daily updates, upcoming events, reminders. You can, I'll say building community is not the strongest, but I think there are some community elements that you can use Remind for, and then registration links. So there's, just like GroupMe, there's a whole lot of things that you can share now in a Remind. You're limited by characters. It's probably, I don't know if it's just like Twitter, but it's not a ton of characters that you can get in a Remind. But what's really nice about Remind is people can direct message you back, but what's really nice about it is a mass group. It's more of a mass text tool. Instead of just going to a group, it's going to a group that signs up for it, but it's not in the sense of GroupMe where it's everyone in a group together. It's meant more for, you're the person, at the, top tier communicating a message out to everyone else that's a part of your organization. And I think it's most, when I was in parish youth ministry, I would send out a Remind about midweek just to remind youth that we had youth group that week. And then I would always send one out we did youth group on Sunday evening, so I would send one out right after church. And on that one, I might include what was on the dinner menu, something to get them a little jazzed up for why they should come to youth group that night, like tacos. They were always excited about tacos. So that's it for Remind. How it works. So how it works, you've got your unique code, which ours is at EYCDIOATL. And that's the number that everyone uses. And so it's nice that, you can kind of push that out you can have it on your, in different places, but people, I just get random signups for it. And it's just a nice place where it lives. And, we get people to sign up. Anything for that, Eric? Good to go?
Same way, just, you are realizing that it's going out, that being safe, what you're saying, and doing the best thing you can while using the technology that you can. So no, not really.
All right.
This is awesome information, guys. And internet connection is unstable, I'm told.
Ooh.
Else, but at the moment we haven't received questions and we just had one question on Facebook, which was if this all would be available later, which it is.
Okay.
So don't we continue on and see if any more questions arise as we talk discipleship tool.
All right. So social media as a discipleship tool. Why? I think shortly it's evangelism in the digital world. We've got a message. We've got that message, that gospel of Jesus Christ that we want to share in every way that we can with whoever we encounter. And so it's a discipleship tool because that's what we're able to do if we use it correctly. And so how I believe that works is youth promoting it. And when I say it, they're promoting different things that are going on in our ministry, as well as their parish youth ministries. But so they're being disciples in the sense of like inviting others into the community. Right. And I mean, and we're going to show some pictures of this in a minute, but for our high school retreat, we have a really strong happening program. We usually have about 150, between 130 to upwards of 150, 160 youth up for the weekend. New Beginnings is very similar to that as well. I think we see it a little bit more with happening because it's high schoolers kind of recruiting high schoolers to join the movement. And so there's something about seeing high schoolers professing like the love of Jesus and how much this retreat has meant for them on their social media platforms, and and then changing their link in their bio to the registration link, and saying like, click my bio link, like register, do it. And so we get every happening we have, like it's always multi-denominational at our happenings because they're recruiting in their high schools, all over the place, their sports teams, their clubs. And so we're always getting all these different churches and denominations. We've also had different religions. We've had, I know like this past happening or the happening before that, we had, I believe, a Jewish teenage boy that came. So like, I think that's directly impacted by like the way they use social media to interact with one another. Also messages of love, that's when I get back to that inspirational piece of it, like posting things that like connect with them, or maybe like, that's why we kind of do the Music Choice Monday, to give them a song that maybe they've had not such a great Monday, because Mondays tend to suck. So giving them a song to kind of pick them up a little bit. Prayer. I mean, come on, it's the Episcopal Church. Like, we're all about some good prayers. And that's where Repost comes in, because the Episcopal Church is always posting some prayers. And there's plenty of others that I see all the time, and I tend to rely on them to give me a good one that I can repost. So feast days, and then that community builder thing, kind of going back to that, this is where I see the community building really like take shape, is the way young people like communicate with one another, like throughout like the process of the events, and just the community itself, building the community and making it stronger, knowing our name and using, I put the hashtag symbol as next, because like using the hashtag for happening, using our hashtag for New Beginnings, like using these hashtags that they want people to know about so that they can look that hashtag up and go see what they're talking about. So that to me is a big way that it's a discipleship tool. So some different apps that I think feed into that aspect of it. Word Swag is one that I talked about. That's basically, and Font Candy are basically pictures on words, or words on pictures. Really easy to use tools that do what you want them to do, unlike some programs that you'll use on your desktop or your laptop. Legend is a neat app that creates short videos with words. And like you can, if you go to our Instagram account, you'll see one that we did recently. I don't use it a whole lot, but we do them every now and then just to push something out that's a little different. Studio, I kind of look at Studio as Photoshop for your phone. It's a really powerful program. There's a Studio one that you'll see in the next slide, but it's a lot more robust than WordSwag Font Candy. Also might take you longer to use it. We've already talked about Repost, which again, just a nice way to grab people's images off of Instagram. The way they can do that, and just so you know for your account, is make sure your URL share is turned on, because if that's not turned on, then they cannot share your photos. It's really, unless you're worried about them, sharing photos of your youth, which I have consent and liability forms for all my youth for photo release. Repost is a great thing to use and a great thing to have on. Generator is a meme creator. There's a lot of meme creators out there, but if you want to make a meme, Generator is the one that I use. And then layout is, and it's a little, I can't see it. I hope it's just half the word on my screen, but layout is when you see people do multiple I think it's Instagram's program or app, but it communicates well with Instagram, but it's the one where you see people do like multiple pictures like in the same picture. The layout is what you would use to do if you wanted to show like 3 pictures from a retreat. Or from an event, whatever, then layout's one way that you can do that. So yeah, that's a little bit about that. So showing these very quickly, this first one on the left, that's Mackenzie, our amazing youth ministry intern. She manages a lot of our social media for us. And so I'm very thankful for Mackenzie. We work on social media together, but this is what you would get with Studio. It takes a little bit more time. It can be a little bit of a pain, but it works really nicely. Adds a little bit more of an element of professionalism to what you're trying to do. You can integrate your logo into it as well. This next one is WordSwag, Youth Service Day. That's the picture of Joel, one of our youth ministers. Because Joel is in this picture, we got 114 likes on Instagram. I'm giving Joel 70 of those likes. I'm not kidding. Like, it's that important. It really matters. This next one was from our Steps to Lead retreat. Let this flame be our purpose. Let it burn strong and bright for everyone to see and feel. Hashtag Compline, hashtag Steps to Lead ATL. Again, getting more inspirational, like kind of just a unique picture where people are going to be drawn to something like that as we talk about Compline. And then the last one, sharing things like General Convention. Like that was something that was really important as it was going on. So letting people know like where they could find that. Again, a picture without as much going on in it got 32 likes. It's just interesting to me, like how people's faces like add a whole nother dynamic to the way people interact with your photos. So that's it for those pictures. Okay, here's a little bit more. This one on the left, I believe, was one that we did for Veterans Day. I believe, yeah, this was Veterans Day. So it was a pretty inspiring, photo that showed a veteran that was killed in action. And so, anyways, that one definitely, spoke to people. The next one, I love the National Cathedral. And the stuff that they do. I always look for what they're doing on May the 4th because it's awesome. And so you see them, I always try to give photo cred, and so you'll see that I gave them the photo cred right there because I'm not here to steal their stuff. It's amazing. Thank you, National Cathedral. Continue to do amazing stuff on May the 4th. It's awesome. The next one was for March for Our Lives. Our young adults did some really powerful work. It talks a little bit more about it in this post, but we were really get the conversation going, and we really let our youth and young adults lead that conversation, but we were just trying to help be a catalyst to keep the energy going. But it's really inspiring photo, like, and their messages of like love, like leading up to March for Our Lives. And this last one is MLK. This was for MLK Day, as well as a prayer that was a part of that. Anyway, so that was, and this was made with WordSwag. And I took a photo like off Google and turned it into a WordSwag photo. So I think that like there's some really unique things that you can do with some of these apps. Next slide, Eric. These are our hashtags. I think it's really what I want to point out in these 3 photos that you're seeing with each individual square is an Instagram photo from someone. As I'm looking at this, I see maybe 2 or 3 that were hashtags, like that were done by me, that like it was my hashtag. Most of these were done by youth ministers, by our youth groups. And so again, it's become part of the culture is to share, to use that hashtag to share about the Episcopal youth community of our diocese. They have their own hashtags too that they use for their youth group, but like our hashtag, I mean, trending is a silly word that I would not necessarily use for us, but for our small market, like it trends really well. And people use it. And so as far as like a tool for discipleship, I mean, they're doing it. Like they're really pushing out this message and inviting people into this community. And so it's powerful for me to see so many photos that have that hashtag that did not come from someone on my staff. That's it for those. And last thing I want to do is just say all of this, like all of what you're doing with social media, it's got to point it back to somewhere. And for me, that's the website. That's where all of our content lives. And it is, to me, it is a living, vibrant community of people. It's a website that tells our story. You see kind of who we are with our purpose statement on the homepage we always kind of change that homepage photo to mirror one of our most recent events. It's got a contact one right there. It's got our Dawson Youth News where they can subscribe to our MailChimp e-newsletter that goes out. And then it has all of our social media icons that we use. Weebly is who powers our website. They don't have a Snapchat logo, that's cool. That's totally fine. Which they did, but they don't. That's fine. And then the important thing for a website that I just want to point out is, again, you'll see our website is eyc.atl.org. You've got the banner going across the top of the website. And then this little tab here is the drop-down menu that would show you all of our events, all of our calendar page, like photos, videos, everything is right there. But it's a mobile-friendly website, meaning that everything that we should do, we have to take into consideration if it has a mobile template or not. It's 2018. If your website doesn't have a mobile template, you need to talk to someone about that. Whoever's managing your communications, do it. Have that conversation. Say I said it. Say I will be glad to explain to them why their website needs to be a mobile template as well as, but that doesn't mean it's not a desktop template. I'm just saying that most of my traffic comes through mobile. And I think that's the truth for everyone. People are looking on our phones. Like that's just the reality of it. So I think that is it. I have a couple quotes here. And this is by Gary Vaynerchuk. And this is from his book, Jab, Jab, Right Hook. It is our job as modern day storytellers to adjust the realities of the marketplace because it sure as hell isn't going to slow down for us. I say that because we are storytellers, and this is, as Eric and I both said at the beginning, none of what we're talking about is going anywhere. Like this is here to stay. And so we have to do our part in making sure that we're staying on top of it, because everything that I'm talking about right now, there's going to be some new things that come up, in the next weeks, months that we need to adjust to when it comes to these social media outlets. Eric, I think there's one more slide. And this was kind of like my closing thought quote on this. And that's to use social media to communicate with young people and to tell your story, whatever that story is. Whatever your story is, whatever your core message is for your audience, whatever you want people to remember about youth group, formation, children's ministry, church, whatever that is, use these outlets to share that story. And that's kind of our job as ministers in a digital world, is to make sure that we have a clear and concise story that people they may not want to hear it, but that we're giving them that outlet to hear whatever that story is. That's it. That's all I got. Eric, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Try that now. We do have a question that came up that I want to bring up and that we can answer. I'm curious as to what you see as the most important part of social media to utilize when working as a part-time youth minister. It is hard as a part-time to utilize a lot of what is being said, so I'd like some suggestions on what has the largest payoff for those of us with limited time. Could I answer first before you do it, Easton?
Do it.
Choose one. Don't do them all. You'll be inundated. Choose one. Choose the one that you think is going to be the most. I think Instagram will have the most impact, because not only can you use pictures, but you can use words on top of that. But choose one and start with that, and use that and have that become a part of what you're doing in your part-time world. Easton?
I would say that I was a part-time youth minister when I was managing social media outlets. And at the time, it was primarily Instagram and Facebook. And the reason I'll say that you can use Facebook too is it links to your Instagram account. So even like if you don't want to have to log in to your Facebook to change a bio link, then just be like, you always turn on that Facebook share. Like you have to, it gives you the option as you're doing the Instagram post, it gives you the option to share to Facebook. Don't share it to Facebook if you don't want to mess with it. You don't have to. There are photos that I feel like are more personal for our youth community. There are things that I don't share to Facebook because it's not an appropriate thing. It just has to do with like, sometimes it's just more of, even though it's like an intimate audience of like over 1,100 people, they're like 750 of those people are under 30, you know? So I think that it's more relatable to like that core group that really pays attention to what we're doing. So my suggestion would be try to use Instagram and Facebook, and know that they link together and you have control over what you share to Facebook. So it's just more of remembering to do that. But as Eric said, if you got to choose one and only use one when it comes to young people, Instagram.
Another question has come up. Can you schedule posts in advance on Instagram? I know how to do it on Facebook, but haven't cracked the code on IG.
So Hootsuite is one of the resources, or it's one of the works cited at the end that I use for some of this information. But Hootsuite is something that you can use to schedule, I believe, probably not Snapchat. Sorry, I don't use Hootsuite. I just know what it is. I tried it. I guess I'm not organized enough. Like I tend to post things in the moment. It's kind of just built into my daily routine to be active on social media. So I don't really think about it that much. But if you're looking for a cheat code, the answer is Hootsuite would be your cheat code for it.
Another question. This is all very helpful, but I do worry about how we work to not alienate those, particularly middle schoolers, who don't have access to all social media platforms, either because they don't have phones or don't have parental permission. Do you have any advice about that?
Eric, you want to go first or you want me to?
You flip a coin, say you just choose. You want me or you want to?
I got it.
Go.
So, I think that's definitely an important question to raise. I would say that you're never going to be able to please everyone, and that, like when it comes to, it's not something that you have to make a big deal out of. Like in youth group, it could be something where, those that have access to phones, like there could be one slide you show at youth group or just one time you mention it every now and then. Hey, make sure you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, and you leave it at that. It doesn't have to be like a big deal. But as far as like the positive will outweigh like some of that. But I hear what you're saying about alienating. But I don't, in my experience, like the youth that I know, like they share with each other. Like if someone doesn't have a phone, like, they're showing each other like what that, post might be, but it's not something that where you're whipping it out and you're a lot of times when you're posting things, you're doing it when you're not around people. Like it's not like you're whipping out your phone to keep people updated about what's going on in a youth group. It's something that you're doing like after the fact as a reminder. And when I think of youth being alienated, it's more of like when they feel left out, like in the moment, but you're not necessarily doing that like in the moment updating. You're doing it as a reminder, as something later on. But so I guess just not making a big deal about it would be my answer to that. Or my
and I would suggest that you remember that not to use that as your only method of communication. That's a both and, that you remember that there are people that are not connected that way. And so some ways to do that is that if you create a meme or create one of those pictures, print it out, put it on your board at church or there, so that those that don't have the digital devices can also be included in seeing that or that moment. But don't use it as your only method of communication. You might actually have to still do postcards or old-fashioned things or smoke signals or whatever you do to communicate as a both and method.
Yeah, well said, Eric. That's something that, yeah, definitely including that, like making sure that people are updated on what's going on in your church in other ways that, hard copies, different ways for sure.
So another way of dealing with that also, as you're dealing with parental permission, is get the parents to connect. And maybe that they'll follow you and they can show their young people, especially if they're not having phones themselves, or that there's that. That's just another suggestion. We have another question. Some employers have told employees to get their families off Facebook. So please be aware of that. Please post to the church website.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, Sandra, if I'm understanding if that's a question or more of just a comment. So
I think it's talking about that Facebook, again, is because of how things have happened in the past and all this, is that they're saying, remove your family, remove your pictures from there, from Facebook, because people were sharing too much on Facebook, and you could find a whole lot of information that you didn't want to. We are also coming up with, I've discovered, that our young people, as they are then going out into the work world, they're being Googled, they're being checked, and depending upon what they've posted or what their friends have posted or what their security settings are, they are seeing things that maybe they don't want other people to see. Again, a reminder, if it's out there once, it's out there forever, and you need to be careful of what you post. We do teachings with our young people about sort of responsible living in the digital world. And I would suggest offering even some of those classes to adults, to kids, to all of that. Cyberbullying itself is also still a problem out there. And people that know a lot can go into a Facebook page and find out an awful lot about a person.
Absolutely. A lot of, and Facebook's definitely, a culprit of the information part of it. We leave a carbon footprint wherever we go online. That's just the reality of the world we're living in today. And so what Eric said, I think that when it comes to, since I'm on a Dawson level, I'm not communicating directly with youth in such a way. But the way I model myself on social media in a way of hopefully showing youth what I think is an appropriate way to model oneself on social media platforms. And that comes to, even how I choose what I choose to share, when it comes to politics and things like that. That is one, and I think that when we're talking about best practices for all of our youth and young adult accounts, it's the same standard. We are not here. You should. What I would say is posting a prayer on election day is appropriate. What's not appropriate is talking about which political party that you want to win on your Dawson, Facebook channel, or your Dawson any of your social media channels. It's just, we have to remember that we cater to a large community of people that view things very differently on all sides of the equation. And so, it's always keeping those kind of things in mind.
Yeah, good. This is, and Q&As we've received have been so positive, and grateful for all the information you guys have shared with us. You've shared like a ton of great information, and thank you so much. And a lot of the questions were about available, and they'll be available, which is buildfaith.org. On the webinar, you'll get an email automatic learning as well. So we'll get all of that information out to everybody. But you guys did a great. I just want to point people to a couple upcoming for lifelong learning. In December, we're going to be talking about welcoming the visitor, tips for the holidays, with a couple of people who are well-versed in welcoming newcomers to church, especially around the holiday season. And then in January, we'll have a webinar on being church beyond the building with Kyle Oliver and Emily Scott. So please mark your calendars. And you can always register for a webinar, even if you can't make it, and that'll just ensure that you and all the resources after the fact. Eric for being a huge help on the tech side of our different work bandwidths in 3 different states. Just a reminder, this is brought to you by Virginia Theological and eFormation and Building Faith. And we did have a question, and somebody asked if we're going to be offering something. Great, and there will be an eFormation boot camp as part of the Forma week up in Indianapolis. So we will see you there. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Everybody be well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.